Industry Network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. Hello, welcome. State of Our Football Nation on Football Nation Radio. George Danikian and Pokuah Frimpong, my co-host, who's running the console and making sure we don't fall over. How are you? Busy week in football?
It has been a busy week. I've been good, George.
How was the commentary on Paramount Plus?
I didn't do any on the weekend just because the dub was off with the Matildas playing, but I enjoyed watching the Matildas play. It was a lot of fun.
Well, we'll talk about the Matildas soon, but right now we have an opportunity to reach straight out to one of our special guests, not only a partner at GPZ Legal. His name is Nick Galatas, but he's also the chair of the AAFC. Nick, welcome to Football Nation Radio. How are you?
Thanks, George. Very well, thanks.
Last time you and I spoke, you were saying to us that you were hoping things were heading in the right direction. Can we just say, can we agree now that with some of the announcements coming out of Football Australia and listening to some of the commentary coming out of the football community, things are moving?
Yep, we can agree, George, and in the right direction. So we were right then. Hopefully we stay on course.
Now, what are the sorts of clubs that you would love to see put their hand up and say, we want to be part of this national second tier?
You're asking me to name them?
No. What sorts of clubs? And if they are in a lower tier, what are the sorts of things that you would like them to do to make sure before they put their hand up and say, we want to be part of it?
Well, firstly, George, the EOI has referred to as a sort of clubs it's looking for is a sort of clubs that I also want to see, and that is clubs with a connection to the game, a tradition in the game, for a start. Support within the game, ties to the community. They're the things that Football Australia has said they're looking for. They're the things that they identified with the clubs when they went on their consultation roadshow in the back end of last year, second half of last year, and that was met with great positivity by the clubs because that's what they wanted to see, and I think that's what AAFC pressed from the beginning. So we had a meeting of minds on that. In terms of now moving beyond just that, from my perspective, what we're looking for from clubs is their ability to step up from their current position, so that having been stuck in the NPL and potentially below for those clubs who are interested in putting their hand up.
You know where I'm going with this? There's a club called Preston that is not where it should be, but where it wants to be is a very exciting place.
Yeah, and we've got to get there. We've got to get in a sustainable way, and not fall, not attempt a leap across a chasm and then we'll fall down.
Correct.
So we all agree it's got to happen. And because we all agree it has to happen in a way that is, can happen, is doable. So that what the clubs need to do is understand what's required and understand that despite having really been in competitions below which took away their aspiration, restricted them, and in that sense, it didn't enable them to grow. And that was one of our big complaints and why we pressed for this, to give the clubs an opportunity to grow, both for themselves and, of course, for the benefit that will bring to the game. Now that the opportunity is here, they need to, recognise that I need to grow and need to professionalise, as I think FA has said, but also to do it in a sustainable way, in an incremental way. So on the one hand, to reach the potential as quickly as possible, but on the other hand, not to perhaps reach too far. So it requires clubs to have an insight into the challenge. So what I'm looking for, and I'm looking to assist clubs with as we as AAFC, is to help them with that insight from individually, so that all clubs are at different places. They're not, it's a large country, number of competitions out of which they will come. So we're looking to ensure that clubs understand their position of what's going to be required, and to an extent, thankfully, they'll be able to shape it as well. Because when we move into the next phase, the RFP phase, those clubs will have a say in shaping what it looks like. So it's a symbiotic relationship with FA and the clubs. And so long as everyone understands where they're at, where they're going, and how to get there, we'll get there.
I just got a quick question. What's more important? Is it the past year, like the most recent years of progress that the clubs have made to show that they are progressing, or their future models of where they plan to go? What is more important?
Good question.
I wouldn't put it as more important. It's a continuum, so that, I mean, where they've come from, particularly the last few years when they've recognised or perceived the real possibility that this day will come, many of them have been getting ready, so that those years are critically important because they need to draw on that, on the strength that they've got and the experience that they have. But of course, that's past. So in another sense, the future is always more important because that's where we're going. So I'd say if I had to choose, the future is obviously more important because that's where we will be and where the game is going. But it's hard to choose between the past, really, and the future. It's a continuum in my view, and that's how the club see it. And I think Football Australia sees it as well. The future's critical.
Much commercial interest also involved in this, which means a slew potentially of new sponsors, people who haven't managed to get involved in the game for a number of different reasons. And suddenly, I think the opportunity presents itself in a way that very few really saw coming. Are you excited by the prospect of seeing new sponsors, people both new and old, come into the game?
George, very much so. And I think one of what we're seeing and what we will see more and more as this process gathers momentum and develops is that belief and faith in the process and in the reality of what we're seeing is critical. So that as much as we've talked about it, and I looked at my old emails, George, just to work out, I clicked on the wrong thing earlier, and I think we spoke on the 24th of February, believe it or not. And that was when we were talking progressing and going in the right direction. So it's a year ago almost to the day. So that when we had those conversations in the past, while there was belief among those in the know, so to speak, and I was very confident because I was involved in the process. I fully understand why those not so involved and slightly on the outside say, yeah, we've heard it all before, et cetera, et cetera. But when there's an actual solid basis for believing this will happen as it now is, that's where the real sponsors, that's where the people put up their hands and okay, I now believe it, I accept it, I'm happening. So clubs and competitions alike can, I think, benefit from that. So that's absolutely key. So we are excited by it. There's a lot of that we'll see that will emerge, and perhaps from sources that we are unable to predict or foresee. So that's something that is one of the great benefits of what we're doing at the moment, unleashing and untapping what is available, but not previously tapped.
AAFC Chair Nick Galatas is talking to us on State of Our Football Nation. We're talking about the arrival and the direction of the decision making from Football Australia. James Johnson said that we're on the way, and they've put their hand up and basically said to all the clubs around the country, if you're interested and you want to be a part of this participation that's going to take a unique form very, very soon, let us know. So this is the stage we're in at the moment. Nick, I'm very excited by the arrival of new technology as well, which is changing the way that we deliver the game, not only to sponsors, but to the many fans. Does that excite you as well?
Absolutely, George. And not only does it excite me, it's, we embrace it because that's the reality. So
it's transformative, isn't it? Or it has the potential to be.
It is transformative, absolutely, and it's in ways that, again, we don't imagine.
Yeah.
So when we introduce a platform in the game, such as this new competition, that new technology will also adapt to it and say, okay, now I've got this to use, how do I do it? And vice versa. So this is where I think you need both sides, supply, demand, technology, availability, platform, to use both. There's no point having mobile telephone technology if nobody's going to use it. So, to go,
or you don't have the infrastructure to get it done. That's right.
Exactly.
To use it. I agree.
Having cars but no roads, so to speak. So that's where I think a competition like this will enable the technology to be used in ways that at the moment aren't being used, and to deliver the game to many more people.
The reason why I say this is because it dawned on me during a conversation with some people at Albert Park. We went for coffee the other day, and before I knew it, there were about 15, 20 people wanting to intrude on our coffee break, and all giving me an idea that this was going on and this could happen. And did we consider the possibility that all these new technologies that are abounding and changing so many of our lives, how they might impact on the arrival of this new second division, this idea of a national second tier for the game down under? And I thought, wow, this is interesting. So for me, suddenly, things that were potential, something, a nice idea or a very positive thought a year ago, as you touched on, suddenly now gaining very much more fertile ground. And things are really starting to not only take shape, but I can feel business ideas, business people saying, you know what, we want to be involved. We don't want this to pass us by. Now, that's a big move. That's a big move from 12 months on.
And George, just on that and following on from your earlier question, as I remember it, think about it now. And that is that, we tap into so many more people. So the multiplier effect is massive. So until now, a few of us within AAFC and the clubs have been driving it, advocating for it. Of course, Football Australia has been working on implementing it, which is great. But that's a limited number of people working on it. As soon as this becomes
open,
accepted as going to happen, and therefore people see it as worthy of their time, effort, investment, that's when we see the sort of multiplier effect that we can't imagine. You would have seen, I think people have pointed out on social media, Football Australia's Twitter interest on their announcement. I think it's must be getting close to 500,000.
It's gone viral.
It's unbelievable numbers. We know from our own club social media in terms of interest, both for this and generally, that each club has many tens of thousands of interest, likes,
impressions,
engagements, impressions on all sorts of issues. So that, and this now is surprisingly enough involving also many of the older people that perhaps can't get to places anymore like they used to. Who now, amazingly enough to me, are using technology and able to access the game and engage with the game and engage with the community that the game brought to them, their old community when they used to go to grounds and the like. Again, and that's a fantastic positive that is another area that we, I think, will be able to tap and create all sorts of communities online among even the older people and those unable to get to where they used to get to in the past. So this is exciting.
We spoke to John Tsatsimas, who's the new CEO of the Football New South Wales, and he was saying to us the new access technology that allows them to cover the game and to showcase the game and distribute the game is like something he hadn't seen before. And he believes that it will be a major driver for the possibility of this national second division.
The sponsors who jump onto this, George, and the goodwill attached to it, I think will benefit massively. The sort of goodwill attaching to these community organisations, which are our football clubs, who've been through thick and thin and really carried the game for so many decades, as you know, and you've played your own role in that, George. Those people who are able to and willing to contribute from now on to the further development of this game and to bring it to so many more people and to build the football in Australia and to create that necessary bridge between the A-League and below, I think they will benefit them massively commercially and also from the sense of goodwill from within the football community and the community as a whole.
Just before we let you go, last week, Moreland City played its first game in the NPL 1 against South Melbourne at Lakeside. What did you make of that?
I made of it lots. I know people at Moreland City
great old club to see it up there.
Years ago. Absolutely. And I won't, look, I've had a connection
Ted Smith sharing both clubs?
I've had a connection to Moreland since I was a kid, but I won't go into that at the moment.
Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
You live and learn. I didn't know that.
I have, it's another matter, but I'll leave that to another day.
Yep.
And I couldn't get down to Lakeside last week because my football budget, George, time budget, didn't permit it. It'll be divorce if I did that as well. I was out every night doing football. So that was the night I couldn't get down there, but I'm looking forward to catching up with Moreland because fantastic achievement for them to be in the top tier of state football.
I heard from a number of people they were thrilled to bits to see not only Ted, and he spoke so well and so importantly at a very special occasion. And what a thrill. And again, a big night for the game, especially the MPL, and we wish both clubs a tremendous season going forward. Speaking of that, it's time. I know that we have time constraints, so I need to let you go. Good luck with your next appointment, but thank you for giving us a start for the program tonight and also reminding us all that there are sensational opportunities if we embrace them in the proper fashion. And as James Johnson said, Football Australia is open to the idea of a national second division. To all the clubs interested, put your hand up so we know who you are and make sure you're part of the RSP. Let me get that right.
RSP.
Yeah,
RSP.
RSP.
It's a tongue twister, George.
Gee, I wish I could speak
English. RACV, George, is what will get it going.
That's a very interesting thought. Maybe we should get the RACV on board as a potential new sponsor. There you go.
There you go.
Thank you, Nick. All the very best.
Thank you, George. All the best. Thanks
very
much.
Nick Galatas, the chair of AAFC, again, a year on from the last time we spoke, giving us an idea about what lies ahead with the potential of a national second division. We're going to take a break. When we come back, another guest, someone from New South Wales. Again, we're going to go via Zoom.
Travelling.
It'll be Stuart Thomas joining us very, very shortly.
Ever wanted a career in football? At the Global Institute of Sport, you can now study a master's degree in football business or football coaching and analysis right here in Australia. GIS is the largest provider of sports degrees in the UK, with campuses at Wembley and Etihad Stadium. Learn online with unique access to the iconic MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Vasquez beat away by Buffon, and then Ronaldo! What a goal by Cristiano Ronaldo! Sensational! The greatest marksman in the history of the Champions League with an absolute beauty!
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Vasquez beat away by Buffon, and then Ronaldo! What a goal by Cristiano Ronaldo! Sensational! The greatest marksman in the history of the Champions League with
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Ever wanted a career in football? At the Global Institute of Sport, you can now study a master's degree in football business or football coaching and analysis right here in Australia. GIS is the largest provider of sports degrees in the UK, with campuses at Wembley and Etihad Stadium. Learn online with unique access to the iconic MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions. Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. One of the big champions and one of the big supporters of the game over the last few years is Fair Play Publishing. They do some tremendous work. Benita Mercedes, who's been a big part of the game for an awful long time, is always telling us she's got some fantastic new football books, and she always manages to come up with new authors, people who not only love the game, but have something to say about the game. And one of them is Professor Mark Bowman, who is a tremendous character, again, someone who loves the game, and he's released a new book. But so too is an old friend of mine, Stuart Thomas, who we spoke to last year about 1,000 different things. And he's also decided, you know what, whatever the professor can do, he can do. So suddenly, from Fair Play Publishing, we've got a new launch date. I think it's March, later, the 28th of March or the 25th of March, I'm not sure. In fact, he will tell us. So, Stuart Thomas, welcome to Football Nation Radio. And which is your book? Is it When Mum and Dad See Me Kick, or is it the one about the great or yawning giant? Stuart.
Good afternoon, George. How are you? Have you got me loud and clear?
Yeah, I've got you now. We just had a momentary lapse, but you can catch up and tell me which of the two books is yours.
Yeah, my book's called When Mum and Dad See Me Kick.
Okay.
And
so is it the 28th of March is the launch date in Sydney?
28th of March at Glebe. Normally things are held at Glebe Books in Glebe, but when people check things online, they'll notice that there's been a slight venue change because Glebe Books is undergoing some significant renovation. So it's literally a little walk up the street. But it's Professor Bowman and myself are really excited about it. They're very, very different in terms of what they are. There's absolutely no connection between the two of them. However, obviously with just the advantage of us having a reasonable friendship and Fair Play having the possibility of having a slightly larger event to launch the two, it was decided that was the way to approach it. So it's been a sort of long time coming, and I think many authors across that COVID period obviously struggled with things, and I had 3 or 4 works sort of underway and things get a little postponed. So it's lovely to get to this point in time finally.
Where was the germ, the idea? Where did that come from? Where did it sort of settle in your psyche and you thought to yourself, hey, this is not a bad idea. Can I make it into a book? It
was a very unusual idea, George, in that it stemmed actually from a simple comment made in an email, but it's a little bit reverse psychological in a way, in that, you know, my journey in football began way back in the NSL days, and it was one of those situations where the way that the clubs were structured, the makeup of the clubs, and the people that were so passionately involved in the clubs, I was very much excluded from that environment. Now, the people at those clubs weren't doing that intentionally, of course not, but they were obviously cultural communities, and I found myself a little bit lost in that. So
you felt yourself on the outside, did you?
Yeah, and I don't want to have anyone get upset and sort of, you know, feel as though, he's a white Australian Anglo-Saxon male claiming that, you know, he's so annoyed by his white privilege. I'm certainly not suggesting that, but no. Just the way that the game was structured.
No,
there was obviously
the reason I pose it to you that way, and I'm sure they won't be offended, because at the end of the day, I think it's important in life to understand sometimes that you will be on the outside, and you will either choose to work to become one of the insiders, or something else will take your fancy and drive you somewhere else to do something brand new. I was a young kid, ethnic background, Greek Armenian parentage, and the last thing I was thinking about doing when I went to school was to learn to play cricket. I needed to learn to speak English. I couldn't speak a word. But you know the breakthrough moment for me? Play lunch, and someone hit a ball high in the sky, and I caught it cleanly. And that was the moment I went from being outsider to becoming an insider.
Yeah.
So when was your moment of epiphany? When did you go from outsider to insider?
I think what I've done, George, is I've written 10 stories from people that I've met, some of them many, many years ago, some who are no longer with us, others who are very, very young people in a modern context.
Yep.
They're of different sexes, they're of different sexual orientations, they're of different races, they're of different ages, they're a complete sort of mix of, you know, our general sort of social atmosphere that's around us in such a wonderful multicultural country.
Yep.
And funnily enough, one of the stories, I put my story in there. And I think the whole point of the story, and I think the title alludes to it a little bit, is that I probably never really did feel as though I belonged for reasons that were sort of born from experiences in the game at a very young age. And it was probably only within the last 10 years when I took up positions and started working in journalism and writing and contributing that I actually truly felt a part of that community. And it's a community that I describe in the book as, you know, in my opinion, I think football is probably the biggest community in the world. I don't think
no doubt about that.
Yeah, so...
And you know what's even more exciting? There's a young woman who works with me each and every Thursday. Her name is Pokuah Frimpong. And not only is she a commentator on Paramount Plus, but she's a young girl who came from Ghana, and she's become a young Australian broadcaster who's, again, taking her journey and adding her voice to spreading the game across the country. Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, and that's exactly sort of the point that I was sort of driving at. And originally it was, George, I grew up in a Wilga Street in Punchbowl, and every Saturday afternoon a group of Greek, Lebanese, Italian, some Northern European, Slavic boys would come, and I described it very simply as, you know, they played like gods. And I sat on my front step and I heard them screaming Raskopoulos, and I heard them screaming Soper and all these names, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. And I really wanted to engage with it, but it was difficult for me. But then as life sort of developed a little bit further, I kind of realized that, you know, that community sense, you know, takes a long time, and it was just difficult to engage with it. But I always felt a little bit on the outside. And that's not meant to be a sob story, but I realized that every single person, like that wonderful young woman that you're referring to and her story, we all have one. And
Yeah.
I began to resent people. And I know that's a strong word to use, but I did begin to resent people who claim to be more football than someone else.
Pokuah can attest to that. She's been there, done that, haven't you?
I certainly have.
You know, you have a lot of people say, "Hey, you're not as football savvy as I am."
I enjoy.
Oh, by the way, I should add, Stuart, she's an Arsenal fan.
So I know football. That's what he's trying to say. That's what George is trying to tell you, Stuart, that I know football. No. I one of my favourite things is when people try to dumb down conversations about football, and I engage with, and then you bring in something, you stir them up, and then you catch him at the end. I always enjoy that.
Well, that's what Stuart's been doing. He's written a book, and the book is When Mum and Dad See Me Kick. And as you touched on, how many stories? 10 stories in it?
10 stories, George.
That make up the book.
Yeah, and, ranging from the very, very young, which is obviously an allusion to the title. But I just really, really, truly, and I really appreciate, the words coming from both of you in regards to this, because I think it's something that's actually held the game back for a long time in this country, that we have a group of people, and I'm not quite sure who they are, but I've been to people's homes, and they've pointed at coaching qualifications on walls, and they've told me who they played for, how terrific they are, how much better things were in the old days, and all these sorts of things. And sometimes that might be true, and other times it might not be. But that competitive element and that claiming to be more football than others, I think that's counterproductive in terms of the future is what matters the most.
Oh, touche. And we've got a Women's World Cup coming up, and we've just watched the Matildas play 3 very important games against some good competition. And it was terrific to watch. And as Pokuah keeps telling me, there are some sparkling young talented players on the periphery, on the fringes, who are starting to assert themselves. Alex Chidiac, who, for reasons like injuries and a few other things and form, suddenly is starting to stake a claim, isn't she, Pokuah?
She absolutely is, and she's one of my favourite players.
What did you make of? Did you get a chance to see some of the games, Stuart?
I covered all 3 games live online for a website, George.
Give us your view of the 3 games, and were we spinning it the wrong way, or are we on the money?
Things didn't look good 9 months ago, and the Matildas had obviously a ripping end to the year with wins over Denmark and Spain, and they'd beaten Jamaica just prior. Things had looked bad against Canada and not terrifically good against USA last year. This was a real opportunity to sort of show where they were at. Now, the performances were excellent. Well, I won't say excellent. The performances were good. They were very commendable, professional. There was a lot of things to like. I'm certainly not going to say it wasn't. However, there's also, the Spanish side was severely weakened.
Yes.
And they did come back at us in the second half. But you know what? From a 7-0 loss, and yes, they had, I think it's up to 15 players who aren't there. So we've got to remember that. And that doesn't mean we didn't play well. That means we need to remember that if we do play Spain in a World Cup knockout phase match, it is probably going to be a different story, and we need to be ready. Jamaica impressed me. I seriously think they've improved a lot. I thought they were a little bit unlucky. They probably should have had a goal or 2 in that first half. We were a bit flat. The women did turn it on early in the second half. Czechia was probably, in my opinion, I know they had a few players out as well, but I think that might have been the most impressive win. They are a very, very well drilled professional side. They set up really, really well at the back.
They give you nothing.
Yeah, and history shows us over the last 12 months some of the teams that they've held to very low scores or had clean
draws.
Yeah. We actually, I thought we really broke them down. It took us a while, but when they worked it out. Now, I've been, I won't say a critic, but I've certainly been someone who's called out Tony Gustafsson and suggested that, where is this plan that we keep getting told about?
And get a move on. And
it was slow to come. But we have seen signs that, you've got to call a spade a spade. You've got to say, well done. You cannot criticise what we saw. I still think there was some odd little selections, particularly in defence, using Courtney Nevin, in that way and a few different things. I'm not quite sure that's sorted. I don't know what he's going to do with the Charlotte Grant issue versus Ellie Carpenter, because they both look like Australian right backs. So he's going to have to jiggle. He's going to have to work things out. But to me, George, the thing I found most noticeable was the players like Emily Van Egmond and a few others. He looks to have replaced them. They're still there in the squad, but he looks to have gone with some youth. And I think he's now getting confident in them, and he sees them as the Kyrie Cooney Crosses of the world and other players. And
Kyra is starting to assert herself. And can I just say, a year ago, you made a big point of this. Katrina Gorry wasn't around. Remember, she was coming back from, I think it was another. Was it injury?
She came back from after having her baby. Yeah.
Now you see, that's a dynamo. Suddenly, you put a dynamo in the midfield, and things change. We've watched it in the EPL. You take the midfield out of any team, out of any competition, and suddenly it's a very different contest. We saw two teams the other day. We saw Liverpool turn it on at Anfield against Real Madrid in the Champions League. And in the second half, Real Madrid decided, no, we're going to win this game. And they turned it around. So midfield's a key.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of the Matildas squad, I think Kyra Cooney Cross last season had a weird sort of season in Melbourne Victory, where she started really slow with the arrival of Alex Shiak, and then Jeff Hopkins put her on the wing, and she played I think her best football there. It's weird because she's got such great talent for playing on the wing, but she's really improved. She was the player I was the most impressed with in the run of the 3 games that we saw the Matildas play.
So important too.
Yeah, I didn't expect to see that big of a jump from when we last saw her playing for the Matildas, but she's been really, really good, and she's improved significantly. So I think I don't know if we found the perfect balance for the midfield yet, but it's certainly progressing.
It's coming along. Stuart, the dynamic duo of you and the Professor. So we're talking the 28th of March in Glebe in Sydney for the launch of the 2 books.
It's the 28th of March, yes. We're actually having a little meeting tomorrow. We'll have a little discussion about, how things will play out. But, people can probably expect a bit of a Q&A session, or perhaps even a very short reading, of a little section or something.
Lovely.
And I know both of us, they're pretty much, they're passionate they're passion projects in many, many ways. And his is extremely different and a very imaginative sort of exploration of where football was, where it could have gone to, and where it actually ended up. It sounds like a really interesting piece. We've chatted about our books at breakfast for an eternity and not read each other's, so it's going to be a really interesting exercise when we finally do.
I love the cover. It's got the Catholis stand. The Yawning Giant is Professor Bowman's book, and the When Mum and Dad See Me Kick is Stuart Thomas's book, and as he's told you, available or will be available through Fair Play Publishing. When will we actually have a chance to purchase the books from outside of Sydney, Stuart?
It should. Obviously, the books will be on sale by the launch. The specific date, it will be a handful of days before that, I would guess. But if people are really keen and
check the website, Fair Play Publishing,
they can jump on Fair Play and actually just put their order in, and it'll be shipped to them as soon as the print is done, and the book will arrive. So anyone who wants to, I think it'd be fantastic. I'm just looking forward to the feedback, because it sort of means a lot to me, and I hope it means a lot to a few other people as well.
Well, listen, good books are worth their weight in gold. I've always said in this modern era, this next generation is not reading as much as they should. Let's get them reading again. I understand that the whole new world is all about processing, images and video and and what is it, HD TV imagery. But books are the wonderful things that allow us to tell stories in another fashion. Let's tell some really good stories. Good luck with the launch March 28th in Sydney, and good luck with the books. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Appreciate your time.
No worries at all. Stuart Thomas joining us on FNR Football Nation Radio and talking about 2 wonderful new entries to the to the library of football books in this country. Fair Play Publishing, Benita Merciades, one of the dynamos that makes this happen. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we have an opportunity to talk about a man who made a real impact at a club called Preston Lions. His name was George McMilan, and unfortunately we've lost him, but he's left a wonderful legacy, and we're going to catch up with the club president, David Cvetkovski. I'll get that right. Oh, sorry. Let me try that again.
No, it's a tricky one. And
wow.
I think today it's been a long day.
No, it's just warm in the studio.
It is very warm.
It takes a toll on me.
It does.
But David will be here very, very shortly to join us.
He will. He was on the Lions Den last night.
Was he there?
It was a fun show.
Well, he's going to laugh long and hard when he joins us in the studio to talk about the life and the times of a man who really made a huge impact at the Preston Lions.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Vasquez beat away by Buffon, and then Ronaldo! What a goal by Cristiano Ronaldo! Sensational! The greatest marksman in the history of the Champions League with an absolute beauty!
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Ever wanted a career in football? At the Global Institute of Sport, you can now study a master's degree in football business or football coaching and analysis right here in Australia. GIS is the largest provider of sports degrees in the UK, with campuses at Wembley and Etihad Stadium. Learn online with unique access to the iconic MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. George Danikian along with Pokuah Frimpong, and joining us very, very shortly, as soon as he stops laughing, David Cvetkovski, who's the president of the Preston Lions. David, are you there, and have you stopped laughing?
He still hasn't come and joined us just yet.
He hasn't. He's about to. I told you, he hasn't stopped laughing. He's probably in the background there thinking, Danikian has done this again.
Yeah, no. We apologise to Dave. But the Lions Den was on, and the Lions Den will be on continually this season on FNR.
Who's doing the Lions Den?
Lions Den hosted by formerly one of our great hosts, Josh Parrish.
So Josh is lining up yet again for another season?
I think Josh may be Macedonian.
I have a sneaking suspicion he's putting his hand up to become president today to overrun Cvetkovski's reign as president of the Preston Lions.
Yeah, maybe he's saying.
I reached out to Nick Soklev, who's a huge Preston's sponsor and fan and has been for ages. And he said to me, I'll get back to you. But he's stuck in Brisbane with a major training program for their business. So I concede and accept that, Nick, you're forgiven this time round, but David Cvetkovski should be joining us very, very shortly. What did you make of some of the commentary from Stuart Thomas?
I enjoyed it, and it's. I think the more stories about football are told, the better it is. And, and I think the Fair Play Publishing are doing a fantastic job. But
yeah, they have. They've done it for ages. Benita Merciades said to us when we spoke to her earlier in the year, look, we've got a big program lined up for the Women's World Cup. We've got this sorted. We've got some new authors coming in. We've got guests from around the world coming for the Writers' Carnival just before the Women's World Cup. Now, are you going up? You got an invite?
Yes, I will be going up.
Okay, so you're going to be doing a little interview up there, will you?
No, I'll be on a panel.
On a panel?
So it'll be fun. I'll enjoy it. It'll be a good time.
Okay, all right. David Cvetkovski, is he here yet?
He certainly is.
David, have you forgiven me or stopped laughing at my poor attempt to pronounce your name?
I think David might still just be connecting audio. I can't say. Oh, no, there he is now.
David, have you stopped laughing? And will you ever forgive me for mispronouncing your name?
Never, George. Never. I'm just, as you can see, just trying to sort myself out here.
I love it. Yeah. Hey, listen, all those songs you ever used to sing about me, this is comeuppance time. Listen, David, thank you so very much, mate. I really appreciate it because at short notice, it came to my attention that one of the greats of the club, someone who's played a huge role, the late George McMilan, he passed, I think, was it earlier this week?
Last night, George. We got the...
so the news is that fresh. My deepest sympathies to the club and to all those who love George and knew him very well. Can you give us, for those that don't know or didn't know the impact that George McMilan made to the club, can you give us a bit of an insight?
Yeah, well, we got the sad news last night, George. We've been in constant contact with Margaret and the girls, so George has had his battles of late, and even mid-year last year at a 75th anniversary, he was our guest of honour, and we're privileged and honoured that we had actually had a painter come out and paint a feature of him in his heyday. So George was very proud and humbled, as he always was. So an amazing man. And
so there is a portrait of George at the club now?
There is a portrait of George at the club, and there was an absolute outpouring of emotion last night when the news broke. We were live on our own show at FNR, the Lions Den, when we got the news. So the messages that have come through today for the family, from the club, from our supporters, and probably the broader football world, a testament to the impact George made on Australian football. He came out in the 70s. From Scotland. He played for Glasgow Rangers out there, so he'd made an appearance at Glasgow Rangers. I think came out in the early 70s to Perth Azuri before we picked him up around about 1977. And as he says, he played, and he did. He played 9 incredible years of football for our great club, captaining. He, I think, initially came out as a striker, but George, you might remember in the halcyon days of Preston versus South.
I certainly do. Do, and it reminds me again of just how old I am. But look, characters like that help to build the game down under, and to know that he's been revered and respected and thought of in such a way would be a wonderful, wonderful thing for his family and his friends. Do we have at this juncture yet a date for the funeral? Because I'm sure that would be something that many would want to be involved with.
Yeah, not at this stage, and we'll work with family. I've been in contact with Margaret and Ash, his daughter, today, but we'll just let the family grieve today, and we'll wrap ourselves, our arms, our hearts around the family as we move through into next week and get more information. Clearly, we use socials quite a bit down at Preston, and we'll be communicating, but just we posted last night of the sad loss, and socials are just in a good way. It's given people an opportunity to tell their own little stories, pass on their condolences, and through it celebrate. We really want to celebrate the contribution of George. George McMilan, to come to a predominantly Macedonian club in the 70s and 80s, and to become the cult figure that he was. And I read one of the funniest things I actually saw today. I think it was Georgie Campbell, who you'd know well, George. Georgie Campbell, I think, in a bit of banter with Graham Hayes, saying, "How did George McMilan get to Australia?"
Go on.
And the punchline goes, he slid here because he was his long distance slide tackle. So through it all, and a bit of a tear in your eye, a bit of a smile as we manoeuvre through.
I can remember a game. Tony Boscovich was the referee, and McMilan has done one of the infamous slides. Took the ball, in this case, rather cleanly, people were shocked. It was so well timed, and it's great that we can reflect. And we were talking earlier to Stuart Thomas, and the important thing about this game is we've got to give it an opportunity to tell stories, and that's why FNR came into being half a dozen years ago, and what we're trying to do with our club programs, and the fact that you guys have embraced it in such a fashion, and it excites me that you guys jumped on board very early and said we want to be a part of the club shows on FNR, and they were embraced. I can remember you guys coming in and the whole studio would come alive, and then be 55 other people would also enter the studio, and I kept thinking, this can't work, especially during COVID. But you never missed a beat, and I'm super excited about the fact that the Preston Lions may well be one of those clubs that are going to put their hand up and gain entry back into the upper tiers of the game with the arrival of the National Second Division. That would be super exciting, not only to the family and the friends of George McMilan, because this would have been super exciting. Was he thinking about you guys back in the big time?
I don't think there was a game that he didn't come to, George, where he wasn't surrounded. I don't think George has bought a beer at Preston for the last 20
Yeah, that would make sense.
Remember, and he was the inaugural coach of the women's team. So, I spoke to Di Pikolovsky at length today. She's been playing with the 23rd year, and the poor girl was in tears because George had such an impact, even through his daughters, on the women's program in the formation of it many years ago. And, this year, we head into the WNPL for the first time, and that's great. That's in a great way, thanks to George being a pioneer of the sport. When the girls would change outside, there was no change rooms, there was no nothing. Whereas now they are actually in a higher league than our men's team, if you actually look at it.
And I'm personally very excited to see the Preston girls, because Josh Parrish has been telling me they're amazing, and I didn't get a chance to come down to Preston to see them play, but I'm very, very excited that they are in the women's NPL.
David, are you looking for a brand new
Josh Parrish,
ambassador for the women's?
Josh Parrish got that completely covered. And
for the women?
Yes. Josh is out of this world. That man is doing incredible work. But
it's too far for the producer extraordinaire.
Preston's a trek. But
we're not talking about the future president-elect, are we?
No, of Josh Parrish. No. Dave's got that. So, but Dave, I want to.
He had 140. He had 140 people in a live audience last night.
Yeah, Josh is a very popular man.
When he gets going, you can't hold him back. We're thrilled for him. Do you know? I can remember a very nervous young Josh Parrish. Only a matter of 5-6 years ago, walking into the studio here. And he was terrified about what he'd have to say when the microphone was turned on. But you know what? He hasn't missed a beat. He just keeps getting better and better and better at his craft, and reminds us all why FNR was set up to give this next generation of broadcasters a chance to tell their story and add their voice to the game. And look, we're doing this program, which I started with young Josh, and we've got Pokuah Frimpong taking it to the next level. You better tell him that, David.
No, well, George, even in your halcyon days as a mega superstar in Australia, I don't think you ever had limo. He's asking for a limousine to bring him down to...
Mate, I didn't have to ask for a limo. We used the chopper. Thank you very much. Don't start this one-upmanship show, because he might come up second best.
No, I won't go there. But going back to the National Second Division, it's an exciting time, George, for us to cast our eye over what this could look like. A lot of good friendships have been built out there. I'm very fortunate. I'm neighbours. I reckon there's only 500-metre divides, myself and Mr. Nick Marcoussis from South. So we quite often catch up, and we talk about how good it would be to create a rivalry where our two teams could play in front of 12, 14, 15,000 people very easily. We had 5,000.
Can I just add one thing to that? I want to be there, because the last time there were that many people at Lakeside, we had a police invasion. They decided to run their horses onto the ground. For no
maybe
good
the
reason.
two presidents, George, can toss the coin, you and call it. What else you can do?
What a good idea. Hey, create our own moment in history.
I just want to ask a quick question. Obviously,
here we go.
The club is, coming down to Preston last season with the Lions. And I heard you guys speak a lot about how much the work you guys have done in the past to build this club back up to where it is. And obviously you're creating future plans. But how do you see the club moving, like in terms of like your progression you've done in the past and where you envision yourself in the future in terms of national second division and fans and the community aspect of it all?
Yeah, thanks, B. I guess when we look at it, we've built the club up based on a thing called an experience, a game day experience, an engagement experience with fans, because we're in the entertainment business. Yes, we're in the football. Football is our platform, but on Friday nights we look to entertain crowds. And on Friday night, when you look at the diverse range of people, I think we're tracking at about 35% female last Friday night.
How good's
from
that?
Everyone, from junior girls and mums, and just a broader crowd coming in. Generational crowds. My grandma's 93. She'll probably come with my mum some games. So, how do we put on a product? And this is for every team. This is not just for my team, because if we play someone with no crowd, it's not entertaining. There's no rivalry. How do we create organic rivalries between each other that are healthy? And if we can do that respectfully, this is grassroots football. This is what I call the fabric of our club, and the fabric. We play Werribee on Saturday. I've already spoken to a lot of the guys down at Werribee. Hey, Dave, what do you need? What kind of? They want Preston to go down there. They want a couple of thousand people so they can make money for their junior systems.
Yeah. Let the canteens function and flourish too.
Yeah, how do we create an ecosystem? We played good old president of Box Hill, George, out there last year, worked tremendously with us, and we took 2,500 down the last game. And at the end of the game, gave me a hug, said, Dave, we've never made any money like this. So how do we all contribute to this ecosystem and make the game great?
Listen, I want to take this opportunity to thank you once again at short notice to jump on board and come and help us, remind the marketplace and also the fans of the club that the late George McMilan passed last night, and there's a funeral to be prepared. But we wanted to reminisce about someone who added so much to the game. And I'm sure it's a club he didn't know about when he arrived in Australia in Perth, but by the time he arrived in Melbourne and became adopted, as they say, in those early days of the NSL, he never put a foot wrong. The timing might have been a little off occasionally because the free kicks, would come and go, but he was a mighty, mighty character, larger than life, and we're thrilled to bits that so many people will remember him and so many people cared. So thank you very much for helping us on FNR to reflect on the late George McMilan. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you, and may you rest in peace.
Thank you, my boy. A tremendous opportunity to tell a few stories today. Thank you to Pokuah Frimpong, who worked behind the scenes tirelessly. You didn't see her scurrying around, jumping around, making sure that all the switches that were causing some problems in the middle of the show actually turned out to be successfully operated on. She's a mighty marvel, Ghanaian Wonder Woman when I let her loose. As I said to you time and time again, the only time she's disappointed is when her Arsenal get beaten, but they're back. They're back.
Top of the table.
Aston,
you guys are in the top four, though.
Yeah, we got lucky. We were playing a side that doesn't know how to score goals.
You didn't draw to Nottingham for us, that's okay.
Ooh, what? Did you see that the result coming?
No, but I was hoping for it. That's for sure.
Pokuah, have a great week.
You too, George.
Thank you very much for your support. I believe we've had some technical issues. If you have been disappointed by some elements of the show, we promise to make them right by tomorrow afternoon, and I think we will get them up again.
Yes, we will.
So a full hour
We'll do a rerun.
We'll do a rerun of State of Our Football Nation, an opportunity to hear from Nick Galatas, from Stuart Thomas, and from David Cvetkovski, the president of the Preston Lions, who's thrilled about the progress they're making, but also very, very saddened by the news that one of the greats of their club, the late George McMilan, is no more. You're listening to the State of Our Football.